Good evening. And the final evening of our class again. I'm sure that some of you have recognized that in many ways this has been an unusual class. This class is as different from our past classes as you can imagine. And probably one reason is that when our classwork began in March of this year, an unfoldment was given to me that while it followed exactly the principle of the infinite way, came in, shall we call it, a different facet, a different way, a different mode of expression, and one that was very forcible, powerful. And that unfoldment went around with me to the classwork in England, Holland, Sweden, down into South Africa and across to Australia. And in Australia, during the Melbourne class, we had another powerful experience. And with it came an unfoldment of the nature of God as I. You will recall that the word I is used by the Master to indicate a presence that is within each one of us. I will never leave thee nor forsake thee. Before Abraham was, I am with you. I am with you unto the end of the world. Always you will notice that word I. Again you will notice I have meat ye know not of. I can give you water, living water. I am the bread, the wine, and the water. In Orthodox religious teachings, that is given to as if that I that Jesus was talking about was Jesus, a man. But in the light of our understanding today, you know that if he had ever meant that we would be hopeless today because Jesus isn't anywhere around. And so we'd be left without the bread of life and the wine and the water. We'd be left without that presence that goes before us or that remains with us unto the end of the world. And so we have to look further, and as we do, we know that he was speaking about that which he called the Father within me, my Father and your Father. But study the Scriptures and see how many times he used the word I. And then you will understand that this I of which he speaks is right where you are. If you make your bed in hell, it will be there with you. If you mount up to heaven, it will be there with you. If you walk through the valley of the shadow of death, it will be there with you. If you walk through the flames, they will not kindle upon you. If you walk through the waters, you will not drown. Always because I am with you. And as long as you can bring to your conscious remembrance the word I, you will never be alone. And not only that, but you will understand him when he says, I and the Father are one. And all you have to do right now, silently, within yourself, repeat that word I, and then remember, I and the Father are one. That very I that you declare and the Father are one, inseparable, indivisible, always present where I am, always present where thou art, in the past, in the present, or in the future. Before Abraham was, I was with you. I will be with you unto the end of the world. Joel won't be, and Jesus won't be, and neither will John or Paul, but I will be with you unto the end of the world. And your conscious remembrance of that I will remind you of Moses, that which changed him from a shepherd to a spiritual leader of a whole nation of people, a whole race of people. I am that I am. I am. And remember that made him a leader of people. And as I told you in previous classes, when Solomon was building the temple, there was a password that was to be given to all those who helped in that work. And on possession of that password, they would be enabled to travel any part of the world they wanted and work and receive master's wages. Not anything less than a master's wages, just by possession of that secret word. And that secret word is I am. And everyone who knows that word, I am, can travel any place they want and find employment at a master's wages, find safety, find security, find peace, find harmony, but first they must find I at the center of their being. They must learn to dwell with I. They must learn to praise it, to be grateful for it. They must learn to live with it as a living entity. It must become closer than your mother and father, or sister or brother, or husband and wife. That I at the center of your being, you must feel so humble in its presence, because it is the presence of God that has been planted in you since before Abraham was. The very presence and power of God has been established in you since the beginning, before Abraham was. And that presence and power of God is known as I in the midst of thee am mighty. I, now under your breath, to yourself, repeat it, I in the midst of you am mighty. I in the midst of you will never leave you nor forsake you. Whithersoever thou goest, I will go. That is why that passage in Ruth and Naomi is considered one of the most beautiful in all the world. Now, what is it about those very ordinary words that makes it such a beautiful passage? I will be with you. Whithersoever thou goest, I will never leave thee. Bid me not to leave thee. Whithersoever thou goest, I will go. And that's the truth. Wherever you are in the valley of the shadow of death, I am with you. And if you mount up to heaven, I am with you. And if you make your bed in any temporary hell, I am with you. In sin, in disease, in lack, I am with you. And the recognition that I will never leave thee nor forsake thee will lift you out of any temporary discord or inharmony and reveal to you your rightful place, your rightful estate, your rightful relationship with God. But don't look for a God afar off. Look for a God that is closer to you than breathing, nearer than hands and feet. And what is closer to you except I? I is the only thing that's closer to you than breathing, nearer than hands and feet. And I will never leave thee, nor forsake thee. Whithersoever thou goest, I will go. I will be all things unto thee. I am the bread of life. I am the wine. I am the water. I am all these things. I in the center, and that's why you must be humble in its presence. You must not use it as if it glorified your humanhood and made you a god. It doesn't make you a god. It makes God safely anchored in the center of your being. It makes you the child of God, the offspring of God. It makes you subject to the government of God. It gives you a God at hand, not to be worshipped in holy mountains or holy temples, but to be worshipped in spirit and in truth, right where it is within you. That is why the Master said that when you pray, you must go within. Close the door. Leave everybody outside. Leave everything outside. Go within and commune with I. Isaiah said, is there any other God but me? I know not any. That I at the center of your being. And it is in our meditation that we commune with that I at the center of our being. We may call it the Father within me. We may call it, as Paul did, the Christ. I can do all things through Christ, which strengtheneth me. I live, yet not I, Christ liveth my life. We can give it any of those names, but we must remember that it is the presence of God within us that lives our life once we know I, in the midst of thee, is mighty. The holy name for God, the name that the Hebrews were not permitted to speak. Only the high priest could ever utter that name. All the others had to know God by the name Jehovah, but the high priest could know the real name, which was I. I am. And nobody else. That word was too sacred to be voiced by anybody else. And so it is today that we hold sacredly and secretly within ourselves the great truth that the I at the center of my being is God. That wherever I go, it goes with me. As a matter of fact, it goes before me to make the crooked places straight. Now, mark this well. It is the reason you can't demonstrate supply, because I is your supply. I am the bread and the wine and the water. I am. That I within your being. That's why you can't, there's no use of drinking alcohol, because I am the wine. You have it all within you. I am the wine. There's no use seeking life eternal anywhere, because I am the water that springs up into life eternal within you. I am the bread of life. There's no use praying to be resurrected. I am the resurrection. That I at the center of your being is the multiplier of loaves and fishes. That I at the center of your being is the presence and power of God's grace given to you in the beginning. You are never further from God's grace than you are from your own I. That's why you don't have to earn God's grace. You don't have to deserve it, and you don't have to wait for it. God's grace isn't something you wait for. God's grace is something you recognize as having been planted in you since the beginning of time. All you have to know is the nature of God, and your life is saved. Your life is maintained and sustained. Your life is eternal. Your life is immortal. Your life is clothed and fed and housed, protected. All you have to do is know God, whom to know aright is life eternal. Nobody knows God aright until they know God as I. When you know God as I, you know the one word that is neither objective to you nor subjective. You know the word that is not external to you, nor internal within you, but is you, constitutes you, forms you, maintains you, and sustains you. To know God aright is to know that I, in the midst of you, am mighty. I, in the midst of you, am God, closer to you than breathing, nearer than hands and feet. I, in the midst of you, am God. I will never leave thee nor forsake thee. I will be with thee unto the end of the world. And as you realize that with reverence, with deep reverence, in sacredness and in secrecy, that which you hold sacred within yourself will be shouted from the housetop in the form of spiritual demonstration, and all men will be led to you, for you will be the light of the world. No one can ever be the light of the world, or even a tiny speck of light, until they know that God is in the midst of them. And God isn't the heart or the liver or the lung. God isn't the third eye. And God isn't the solar plexus. God is I, and I is God. And it can't be localized in either time or space or place. So don't try to locate God. You never will. Don't try to visualize God. You can't. Don't even try to give God a name, although for our purposes in teaching, we may think of God as divine mind or infinite consciousness or the infinite invisible, the supreme being, deity. But actually, none of those is God. Only I is God. The others are just different names that we give to the I. Just like I am I. But then if you were describing me, you could say teacher, but my brother would say brother, and my father would say son, and my child would say father. But you see, those are just names given to I, me. And so it is with you. God is I is God, but if you want, you can call God Father, or you can call God the Son, or you can call God Love. Give it any name you like. But what you're talking about all of the time is I in the midst of you. Now remember this. Whenever you're tempted to seek health or supply or companionship or home, resist it and declare within yourself, I am these. I am is these. I am these. There's no future tense to that. There's no past tense to that. There is just the present tense, I am. I am the bread of life. I am the water. I am the wine. I am the resurrection. I am life eternal. Don't seek these. You can't add these to you. Already, the I in the midst of you is these very things. Now you see, this came in just this way in Melbourne. And then back home and over to Chicago, and sitting just like this, talking to the class, something was coming through and declaring itself, and right while that was happening, the voice spoke to me and said, 5th chapter of Matthew, bottom of the page. And I looked around and I said, nope, it's no use. I know what that is. It's the Sermon on the Mount, and I don't understand it. And then the voice repeated it again. And this time I said, well, all right, now you must mean it. And so I opened it to the 5th chapter of Matthew, the bottom of the page, and right out of that book sprung the secret of the Sermon on the Mount. And that's what you've been having here this week. The secret of the Sermon on the Mount. The 2 degrees or 2 facets of life which it presents. Ye have heard that it hath been said of old, and then you know now what was said of old, the type of life that humans live. And then comes, but I say unto you, God says unto you. And then you find what the spiritual way of life is, and you as disciples of Christ are supposed to live according to the standard of what he says, I say unto you. You must read the Sermon on the Mount, and you must watch every passage where he says, but I say unto you, and then try to the best of your ability to emulate that example and live that particular life, because the other life is just the life of Hebrews and Christians and Muslims and everybody else on earth who is living what they call the practical life, the modern life. But you who want to be old-fashioned and follow the Master and be worthy of the name of disciple of Christ, you have to learn to live the life described in those passages, I say unto you, resist not evil. And you have to put that into practice. I say unto you, pray for your enemies. Forgive 70 times 7. Pray for those that despitefully use you and persecute you. Pray, pray, pray. Forgive, forgive, forgive. And all the rest of those passages that begin, but I say unto you, those are the ones that are meant for the disciples of the Christ. And then, in that very same class, in Chicago, on this very trip, came the second part. I'm answering now the question on those 2 parts, and adding to it the third one, which was really the first one that came in Melbourne, Australia. And the third one was the answer to the question that every metaphysician has asked himself 1,000 times. Where did mortal mind come from? Where did error come from? Where did a belief come from? Where did these appearances come from? You say error isn't real, that it's only an appearance or a suggestion or its mortal mind or a false concept. But where did it come from? And on that very platform in that class in Chicago, the answer came. All error comes from accepting a belief in good and evil. And as long as you can be made to say that one thing is good and another evil, you will be outside the Garden of Eden, and you will have health one day and disease another day, or you will have youth one day and age another day, or you will have abundance one day and lack another day, because those are the pairs of opposites, and they follow each other in cycles. It is only when you agree that you wish neither good nor evil, wealth nor lack, harmony or discord, but wish only that which was original in the Garden of Eden, the presence of God. Only then do you rise above sickness and health into eternal life. You see, healthy people die too. Young people become old and die, pass away, use any term you like. Changes take place continuously. But not to those who recognize neither good nor evil, but only God. Henceforth know we no man after the flesh. That means, henceforth know we no man either with healthy flesh or sick flesh, or rich flesh or poor flesh, or old flesh or young flesh. We just don't know them after the flesh. We know them how? As Christ. Christ, the Son of God, your true identity. And so as we know you to be Christ, never look at your body, look right through your eyes until we can see in the back of them and see why the light flashes out from them, and say, because Christ sits enthroned. Christ sits behind those eyes looking out. Not mortal man, not man whose breath is in his nostril, not young man, not old man, not sick man, not well man. Henceforth know we no man after the flesh. We know thee as Christ. Now that you've been released into your Christhood, don't go back again and become burdened with the old sins of the flesh, beliefs of the flesh. The question arises in your mind, how can I unknow good and evil? Well, I can give you an example. I have been using this in the classwork. Here is my hand. And if you were to ask me, is it a good hand or is it a bad hand, I must tell you the truth. It is neither good nor bad. It is just a hand. It is a dead piece of meat. It can't pet and it can't punch. It can't give and it can't withhold. It's just dead flesh. But I can move it. I can give and use it as an instrument, or I could withhold. I can do things, but the hand can't. The hand is neither good nor bad. It is just an instrument. Now, take your whole body in your mind and realize that you haven't got a good body or a bad body, a young body or an old body, because it knows nothing about calendars and can't read them. It knows nothing about how many suns have gone by or how many moons have passed around it, or it knows nothing about time. Unfortunately, I do. And it's because I do, the I that calls itself Joel, that the body changes. And so it is, the body doesn't know whether it's winter or summer, good weather or bad weather, but unfortunately man does. And it's because he does that the body reflects whatever he accepts in his mind. And so it is that the mind becomes an avenue through which the body takes on these world beliefs. Now, from the minute you begin to know that you haven't got a good body or a bad one, a young one or an old one, from that moment on, I, which is the presence and power of God, takes over and begins to manifest its conditions on the body. You see, while there is someone called Joel, he may use this hand to give benevolently or to steal. Joel can. But the very minute that Joel says, this hand is dead, it can of its own self do nothing, it is governed by I, then from that moment this hand becomes an instrument of God and carries only the power to bless. Because Joel is no longer governing the hand. I am, and I, we've just learned, is God. And so it is. When you begin to realize that your body is the temple of the living God, you place your body at God's disposal to use as God will use. And then your body begins to be an instrument for God, for I, at the center of your being. But you have to begin by knowing that there's no good or evil in your body, that your body has no qualities. It merely expresses that which is placed upon it. We might have here a dozen roses, and you might say, how good. And then someone else says, oh no, they give me rose fever. And so there is an argument right away, are roses good or are roses bad? But the secret is that roses have neither quality of good or of bad. It is our response to them that makes them good or bad. When we realize that they have no qualities of their own, our response is always a harmonious one. While we believe there are qualities of good or evil in the rose, it will be so unto us. And it's the same way with everything. You have to begin consciously to take your body into your thought and begin to realize, now here, there is no good or evil in this body. This is just an instrument. And there's no age in it, and there's no youth in it, there's no strength in it, and no weakness in it. This body is just an instrument. I, the God within me, is the principle of this body. You can do the same thing with money. You can just lay out here some change or a bill and begin to realize that it's neither good nor bad. Of itself, it will just stay there for 1 billion years. It can't spend itself. It can't buy anything. It can't do anything but rot of itself. And once you begin to look at it in that light, you will see that money doesn't supply you. You supply money with its capacities and with its power. But don't give money power over you, because you will give it a power that you should only give to God. In the same way with thoughts. Don't fear evil thoughts, and don't be too proud of good thoughts, because thoughts aren't power. Only God is power. If you give thoughts power, one of those thoughts will give you a headache, and another one will take one away, and you won't know which is in the ascendancy moment to moment. The very moment that you begin to realize that thought isn't power, the thinker is power, not thought. Now the thinker has control over thought, and you'll never suffer from a thought, your own or anyone else's. As a matter of fact, once you realize that thought isn't power, you'll find yourself thinking less negative thoughts. It is very much like, I've told this to classes, the subject of alcohol. Once you begin to realize that alcohol has neither a good power nor a bad power, you lose all taste for it. Cigarettes, the same way, tobacco. The very moment, you see, mostly you'll agree that it's not an evil power, but you still think it has good power. Or if you think it has good power, you'll declare it isn't an evil power. But as long as you give it a power, it has you in its grasp. When you can say to alcohol and drugs, you have no power, how can I acknowledge anything but God as power and be living up to the teaching of either Moses or Jesus? The first commandment is there's no power but God. Now how are you going to give power to a thought or to a thing? How are you going to give power to alcohol or to medicine once you've said there is no power but God? Neither power for good nor power for evil. Only watch this carefully. Don't make the metaphysical mistake of saying evil isn't power, but thinking good is. No. Be quick. There is no power but God. There's no good power, there's no evil power, there's only God power, and nothing that is made. You remember Paul's statement about worshiping the creature more than the Creator? Don't do that. Don't make a mistake and worship or fear any creature, whether the creature is in physical form or thought form. Don't fear it and don't glorify it. Glorify the Creator of all form, whether it's thought form or thing form. And then you'll have neither good nor evil, neither good power nor evil power. You'll have only God power. And then you'll find one day that for a brief second you'll be right back in the Garden of Eden, where there isn't a problem, where there isn't a force or a power acting on you for either good or evil. You're just sort of suspended in an atmosphere of peace. Now that's our natural estate, and that's the one to which we must all return, in which we are in a natural state of peace, with no good powers to help us and no bad powers to harm us, but God power always maintaining and sustaining its own image and likeness, and God power recognized as I in the midst of you. I in the midst of you maintain you and sustain you. I do not give my power to another, says God. I do not give my power to thoughts or things. I alone am power. God alone is power. I don't impart that power to thoughts or things. I am the power in the midst of you. Surrender yourselves to me. Give yourselves up and let the I at the center of your being be the all power and the only power. And look out at everything in life and everybody in life and say, thou couldst have no power over me unless it came from the Father within me. Thou couldst have no power over me unless it came from the Father within me. Can you answer why Jesus said, all power is given unto me? Yes, all power is given unto the I at the center of your being. You don't have to find God at the center of your practitioner's being or your teacher's being. You have to find it at the center of your being. While you are in the student stage, while you are at that stage where you are not yet fully demonstrating it, you certainly have the right to turn to the I of your practitioner or your teacher to help you in this present experience. But I like to remind our students once in a while of a Christian Science lecturer who used to quote the first sentence of Mrs. Eddy's textbook, to those leaning on the sustaining infinite. And he used to say, but be sure you don't lean too long. And so I would say to you, be very grateful if you have a practitioner or teacher to help you across, to be a bridge for you across on your journey from sense to soul. But don't lean too long on the practitioner or teacher or too hard. Be sure you make a few steps of your own in between leaning. And then gradually you'll be led from the constant need of a human help. And that doesn't mean that any one of us should become so conceited or egotistical as to believe that they can get along by themselves. First of all, they can't unless they've made the contact with the Father within. And then, secondly, even after that, once in a while, at least in my experience, it's been very nice to have someone around me that I could reach out to once in a while and say, give me a lift. Because the more of this contact we have, the more demands are made upon us to help others. And so once in a while, the going may get a little rough, and we need help. Now, If in a very close personal relationship, that of husband and wife, for example, only one is drawn to the infinite ray, is this couple a house divided against itself, and will separation inevitably result? No. Listen to me. A house divided against itself means a consciousness divided against itself. It means you yourself riding two horses in the same race. You yourself trying to rely on spirit and also on matter at the same time. You yourself trying to follow one teaching and probably mix it with a little of some other teaching. You yourself trying to take a spiritual teaching and then mix it up with a little mental teaching, or taking a mental teaching and then trying to mix it with a spiritual one. When you yourself are divided in allegiance, when you yourself are placing what you think is all power in God and then just lean a little bit on a piece of matter, that's a house divided against itself. When it comes to these relationships, human relationships like husband and wife, it does not mean that they will inevitably be separated if they do not follow the same path. It can happen. It certainly can happen where one of them is forcefully and specifically going in a certain direction, and the other one drags or refuses to go along or cannot understand it or follow it. It may very well happen that in that case there will ultimately be a separation of some kind, or one or the other will have to give up the path they're following. But it does not mean that this is inevitably so, for loads of people have learned to live their individual lives without infringing the rights of another. In other words, as long as each one feels free to follow their own, as long as one isn't forbidding the other to follow their own, I don't see that there's any particular reason for them separating. It is only when it gets to a point of one definitely interfering with another, or one impeding the progress of another, that I can see the possibility of ultimate separation. But I certainly will go on record as saying that it does not necessarily follow that a couple must follow the same teaching or the same way of life if they are each broad enough to let the other follow their own bent. I will also say that, of course, the greatest degree of happiness and harmony is when two are on the same path. Is there any Western method for stilling the mind? I don't think so, but neither do I think there is any excuse for anyone stilling the mind. I don't know why anyone would want to still the mind. I don't see what object they would gain by stilling the mind. The mind is a very, very useful instrument, and the more alive and alert it is, the better off we are. A dead mind and a dead body go very well together. But you can't have a dead mind and an alive body. The mind must be alive. Now, I think what the question meant was, in meditation, is it possible to keep these wild and rambunctious thoughts going on when we would like to be still and peaceful? And that's quite a different subject. We have no right to still the mind, but the mind will still itself in a rightful manner if we will make no effort to still it, but will keep our mind stayed on God. You see, if you force the mind to stop, it is an act of repression or suppression. And even if you succeed, it's going to break out sooner or later and be worse than it was before. We have no right to still the mind, but we have a right to turn our mind and keep it active in the right way. Now, when you want to meditate, don't try to still the mind. Take a Bible passage, preferably a shorter one. My peace give I unto thee. And don't repeat it power parrot fashion, but take it something like this. My peace, we call this incidentally contemplative meditation. We're always contemplating God, or we're contemplating a thought of God or an idea of God. We're contemplating something godly. My peace give I unto thee. My peace. My peace. That my peace. That means Christ peace. Christ peace give I unto thee. I? Oh, I didn't know what that word I meant. Oh, do you remember our lesson tonight? I, in the midst of me, is God. Christ peace, God, at the center of my being, gives unto me. Oh, my peace then comes from within. I give that peace. I, at the center of my being, I give that peace. Christ's peace, not as the world giveth. No. I'm not seeking anything in the world. I'm seeking stillness, quietness, bliss, peace, joy. And where does that come from? Why, he just said I. I give thee my peace. I give thee Christ's peace. No wonder it said, be still and know that I am God. Oh, that's what it means. Be still and know that I never knew what God was before. I is God. Closer than breathing. Nearer than hands and feet. I, in the midst of me, is mighty. No wonder it can give me peace. Well, my peace doesn't come from outside. My peace doesn't come from stilling the thought. My peace comes from I. Oh, I in the midst of me. And you notice how gradually your thought is quieting and quieting and quieting? And that's all it has to be. You'll find that after you've learned that type of meditation and done it 50, 75 times, 100 times, that automatically when you sit down, your mind sits down too. Those of you who have pet dogs or cats, you notice, if this isn't true, that after you learn to meditate, that the moment your dog or cat sees you in meditation, they will immediately come and either jump on your lap or sit down by your side. And they will remain there immovable and soundless until you're through. And when you're through meditating, you don't have to open your eyes, you don't have to move to let them know. They know that you've resumed thinking. Now that is how everything around you, your heart, your liver, your lungs, your cat, your dog, even your furnishings, take on peace and quiet from your state of consciousness. That is why the robe of the Master healed. That is why there have been many people who others could just come and touch their clothing and get a healing. It is because when you learn to live in an inner stillness, everything external takes on that very my peace, Christ peace, and it is reflected unto everything. Now, you can know this. Once your thought becomes quiet, Everything external to you becomes quiet, and then you know that you're achieving stillness and quietness even while your mind is active. But it must be active in contemplating God and the things of God. Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee. Doesn't say a word about being still and stilling the mind. Keep your mind active, but keep it stayed on thee. And of its own accord, it will settle down. Another thing you'll find, once you achieve meditation, you will require less sleep. And the reason is this. Sleep actually is a period in which the heart action slows down. Well, you're going to find when you learn to meditate that your heart action slows down in meditation. Your breathing becomes sometimes so slow that it's almost imperceptible. And you're getting the same rest that you would get if you were asleep. So all there is really to replenishment is spiritual rest. Resting in the Word of God. Resting in the consciousness of God. And then you don't have to be unconscious. That is why I learned years and years ago, 3.5 hours is loads, plenty of sleep for anybody to have in 24 hours, even those who work 20 hours a day. You can't force yourself to that any more than you can force yourself to stop thinking. But gradually, as you contemplate God, keep your mind stayed on God, your breathing quiets down, you become more peaceful, restful, and in that rest you're renewed, and automatically you'll find that you're not sleeping that many hours out of the 24. So it is. Please remember, in the infinite way, no suppression, no repression, no forcing a demonstration. All demonstrations will come to those who learn to keep their mind stayed on God. Acknowledge him in all thy ways. He will give thee rest. You don't have to still the mind, but the mind will still itself. And instead of thoughts racing through your mind, there'll be peaceful thoughts, gentle thoughts. In quietness and confidence shall be my rest. In quietness and confidence. Peace. Peace. Be still. In quietness and confidence. My peace give I unto thee. Be still. Be still and know that I am God. I in the midst of thee am mighty. I will never leave thee nor forsake thee. I will be with thee unto the end of the world. My peace I give thee. My peace, Christ's peace, spiritual peace, eternal peace. The peace that isn't dependent on how many dollars you have or how many hours sleep you have or what your name or reputation is or fame or lack of it. An inner peace, a grace that flows from God. Once you know that I am the bread of life, I am the wine, and I am it. Why shall I seek for these things in the world when I have them in the midst of me? Why not sit back? He leadeth me beside the still waters. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. I shall not want, because the Lord is my shepherd. The Lord in the midst of me. He that is within me is greater than he that is in the world. He performeth that which is appointed for me to do. He perfecteth that which is, he perfecteth. Whither shall I flee from thy presence? Why, thou art here, not now. Son, thou art ever with me. All that I have is thine. Be at peace. Be at peace. There's no other power to alarm you or disturb you. Nothing shall in any wise come nigh thy dwelling place. The enemy, they have only the arm of flesh. What is that to thee? Follow thou me. Is there any other God but me? I in the midst of thee. I formed thee in the womb. That means God even formed my physical body. I formed thee in the womb. I was there with me in the womb. I is here now. Wherever God is, I am. Wherever I am, God is. All that I have is thine. And you see how by the time you get to that place, your thought is quiet, still. It's in confidence and assurance. And that's all there is. There's no stilling of the mind. It becomes still. And in becoming still, it becomes receptive, because you're listening now for more of those promises to come through. You're listening more for God's word to come through to you, to give you further assurance, further grace, further promise. And it's very simple to be still. But don't repress, don't suppress. Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee. That we call contemplative meditation. And after the period of contemplation, we settle back into a stillness that requires no words and no thoughts, in which we are waiting for God's grace to be made evident to us. Now, it won't happen to you perhaps on the first trial or 20th trial or 50th. You must learn to be as patient with this as you would be in learning a musical instrument or voice or a new language. Be patient with it, but remember, it'll only take a few months. Contemplate the things of God. Do it for 5 minutes. Don't wait for a result. Get up and go about your business. Try it again later in the day. Try it again at night. And if you awaken in the middle of the night, don't try to go back to sleep. That's more suppression and repression. Don't do it. Just use those few moments for meditation, and you may go to sleep while you're meditating, and probably will. Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, always, whose mind is stayed on thee. And whenever you find your mind getting ruffled, whenever you find the world forcing itself in upon you, try to get away for 5 minutes and contemplate God again. Contemplate some aspect. You may be able to look out of a window and see trees or flowers. If not, you may see clouds in the sky, or sun, or moon, or stars. And begin contemplating those. But don't merely look at their beauty. Begin to ask, what formed them? How did they get here?
What brought them into existence? Whence came this beauty and color and perfume and regularity? And then you find that you've gone behind the thing, the creature, to the Creator. And again you'll be contemplating God. You'll be looking at all the beauties of nature, but you won't be seeing them anymore. You'll be looking right into the face of God that created those forms of beauty, and then you'll have a deeper sense of gratitude for all nature than you ever had before.